Greetings. Now, I'm going to say this right now. Avatar: The Last Airbender is awesome. In fact, I could have easily made a video about why it's awesome, but that would take way too long, and editing that would have been annoying, even if, all I really do for editing is putting my intro into the video. But I decided to go with something less overdone and talk about the bad parts about Avatar. And I'm just going to take the obvious one out and say The Last Airbender movie is not included. Honestly, that's the worst thing to ever happen to the series. So, let's get right into this. Now, but first, this is all my opinion. Don't take any of this as fact. But, staying at number 5 is Toph and King Boomy. On one hand, we have people saying King Boomy is the greatest earthbender in the world, but a lot of people say Toph is. Honestly, I want to know who is the best earthbender. I mean, I say King Boomy because we've never seen Toph do anything like King Boomy toppling that statue at Omashu. I mean, yeah, he can't metal bend, but I mean, if he was there when when they were facing the drill at Ba Sing Se, it would have been over way faster. Probably even faster than if Toph had metal bending. But honestly, it's an inconsistency that really annoys me, despite the fact that it's never really shown in the show to be really anyone's concerns. Honestly, though, if the two fought, I had my money on King Boomy. Now, my fourth one, it's another inconsistency. Bloodbending. Basically, it's waterbending, using the water in a person's blood. It's horrifying for a kid's show, but scientifically, it works. But that raises the question, couldn't a person who has airbending bend the oxygen in a person's blood? And if a person can metal bend, what about the iron in their blood? I mean, back then, people had a lot more iron in their blood. Well, unless they're eating a ton of cabbage, I think. Does cabbage have iron in it? And regardless, not many people are going to be eating cabbage. It always ends up getting crushed in that show. But regardless, really, the only one that couldn't do something like that is firebenders, because I severely doubt people have fire in their blood. Really, it's just kind of confusing how they went with it with waterbending, but stopped there, when an earthbender or an airbender could do the same thing. Because scientifically, all three of them work. Oh, and just realizing this now, but bloodbending actually makes a person weaker if you're using him as a puppet to fight. I mean, we saw a couple episodes before the bloodbending episode that Sokka was good enough to challenge a master swordsman with his skills. But then when he was taken over by the bloodbending, he immediately just stiffened up and started swinging his sword like this. Which, honestly, I'm not even sure who you would be able to hit like that. Then, my number 3 thing, Suki. I just don't like her character. Some points she seems like a bit of a joke character, but then you're supposed to take her seriously. Some points she just seems kind of like a Deus Ex Machina, when she really couldn't have done it. I mean, she's a person who manages to compete with the benders using martial arts. That I like. But Ty Lee is also there, and she's better. Really, I can't think of anything good to say about Suki except for the fact that her armor is realistic to a point and is cool, except the makeup. That's just kind of weird. But honestly, I just don't like Suki's character, and I'm probably going to get crucified in the comments if someone actually watches this video. Then, Number 2. Complete underuse of Uncle Iroh. Now, I might do a video on my favorite Avatar: The Last Airbenders characters video soon, but I will say this. One of the obvious things you will see is, at least in the top 2, is obviously going to be Uncle Iroh. Because he is one of the best things about that show. But he doesn't have nearly enough screen time. He doesn't really get to show what he's truly capable of, because the only time we see what he is even close to fully capable of was when he blew the hole in the wall of Ba Sing Se, which is extraordinarily awesome. But not only was it not his full power, but he was getting help from Chosen's comment, I think. Regardless, we don't get to see his true power. But regardless, even if he is underused, Uncle Iroh is probably one of the best things about that show. So, it's annoying to the point where I'm giving it number 2 on the list, but not so bad that it's detrimental to the show. But they would have easily benefited with more Uncle Iroh. And number 1 on my list, complete misuse of Sokka. Honestly, right next to Uncle Iroh, Sokka is one of my favorite characters. He doesn't have bending, meaning he has to compensate with other ways, such as mastering sword fighting, or using his gift for strategy, or outthinking his enemies. For instance, he was the one who beat Combustion Man. He was the one who saved his dad from prison. And he was the one who designed those war balloons. And a submarine. Really, Sokka's a genius. Early on, he learned some basic martial arts, and later in this series, he becomes a borderline sword expert. And then, really, his skills kind of get taken away. It's kind of weird. But I will say this. He's also one of the only people that I've ever seen that uses a boomerang to fight with, and that's awesome. But, of course, they didn't really use Sokka that much. And when they did, he was either a joke character, which makes sense, he's good comic relief, and he's a funny character. But when a character that has good potential to be, somewhat to be useful, and they don't use them, that really annoys me. Kind of like number 4 in Codename Kids Next Door. But regardless, Sokka had great potential, but they didn't really use him much, except for mostly comic relief. And there was that whole sexism thing in the first season, but regardless. Ultimately, that is my 5 things wrong with Avatar: The Last Airbender. I could have, honestly, it was pretty hard to come up with these 5 alone. I mean, it's a great show. I highly recommend it. And if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix or Prime Video. I severely recommend checking it out. Of course, I wouldn't recommend The Legend of Korra. I just don't like that one. But regardless, thank you all for watching. This is Randoman, signing off.